Yeah, they put it back to a reasonable range for this shift.
So that's like 4 square kilometers.
I don't know who had it jacked up yesterday.
Is that another ridge on our left?
Yeah. It's part of this feature we see in the bathy, I think. General upward slope. Something is,
Video's gone off comms for a moment.
yeah. Turn on the Ed phone. It's quite a ridge there. It is. No. Your layback is for 450 meters. So I expect you still have some more to go.
How do you press F1 on this keyboard?
Don't know. Don't know if you can. There you go.
So the visibility, for those of you who are asking in feed 2, is not necessarily poor. We're just above the seafloor quite a bit, by about, what, 15 to 20 meters or so?
Yep.
I think that's what we figured. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're used to watching the feed normally where we have Argus, even higher up than that sometimes, but you usually see Hercules lights. So that's kind of what's clarifying things. Argus, we only have Argus's lights on the scene, so things are a bit dimmer.
Can you explain why we only have Argus now? Because some of the viewers may be wondering.
Sure. So we have just Argus right now instead of Hercules and Argus as you're typically seeing, because we are conducting a side scan mapping dive of our 2 square mile search area. We're searching for the Simone Clipper, which was a Sikorsky S-42B type flying boat that unfortunately met its demise on January 11th, 1938 off the coast of Pongo Pongo, American Samoa. So we have Argus only in the water this time, and using its Edutech 4200 side scan sonar, so we can, at a much faster rate than if we were to have Argus and Hercules, map this area. So as we map this area, our science team is identifying dive targets, and once we've finished our lawnmower pattern back and forth over the 2 square mile area, we'll go back, and science team will kind of prioritize and clean up some of the side scan sonar images and tell us which areas we should go back over and ultimately dive on with Hercules, so you get more of a standard Nautilus dive that you might be accustomed to. You're seeing a lot more heave of the ship with Argus this way, because typically When you watch one of our dives, you have Hercules and Argus is taking the roll up and down of the waves away from Hercules, so it's not dragged up and down. But with just Argus, you're getting to see that usual up and down motion of the waves. So you're going to see us get a little bit closer and a little bit further away as you ride the waves along with us. Lonnie, how many times had they made the trip before?
I think this one's worth noting once we get the full scope of it.
It's, yeah, that shadow is a bit large or a bit tall, but this looks like a...
So 20 meters, 10 meters off the deck. How many meters out? Yeah, we'd have to do a little bit of math, but we saw it in the mesotech as well. It's kind of an interesting feature there.
Let's map it.
You wanting to see something in the mesotech
Oh no,
that you can't see because of...
No, it's totally fine. It was on the left side anyway.
This is target 35.
35, and
35.
it's 45 meters to port.
Yes.
It's like a very tall, very long kayak.
Yeah.
Could you
3.5?
scooch the window to the
3.5.
left? Thank you.
Brian, were you asking how many times they'd made this trip?
I was, yep. I didn't want to interrupt science. But
No, I didn't either, so
Yeah,
read it.
no.
This is the
all you.
This flight was labeled A5, so it was the fifth leg. They had already made 2 round trips, Honolulu, Kingman Reef, Pongo Pongo, Auckland, and back. So now they were on their 3rd trip. First leg of the 3rd trip.
And Megan, and do you want to give a description for that last one?
Very large pea pod.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was quite linear. You know, if you were kind of erasing the heaves out,
Yeah.
it just seemed like 2 straight lines.
And
which
then it
was
had that weird sort of shadow gap in the middle. It looked like, yep.
And it's probably not as long as it was as we're seeing all these features stretched out here. So I don't really know what it was.
Have the viewers been telling us anything that they see? What do the viewers think that was?
I don't have any comments yet on what that one was.
Oh.
The most common one was ramen noodles
Come
earlier.
on, people, get inventive.
I think there's like a 6-minute delay before
It's
questions
midnight.
get here.
Haven't even heard from Heather.
Oh my gosh. What's 7? Is it 7:43 on the East Coast? Or is it 8:43?
It is 7:43 a.m.
7:43.
Sleepy, sleepy.
Wake up, everybody.
Coffee time.
So we have a viewer asking how the Hercules and Argus pilots, so Summer and Dan, work together since only Argus is in the water this time and not Hercules.
They both have their hand on the winch, and they take turns. One has control of up and one has control of down.
It's a very complex operation.
Is there thumb wrestling involved?
How winds come up a bit.
Yeah, a couple knots.
We're gonna get some rain.
Yeah, maybe.
The answer is that Summer's carrying this watch on her shoulders, and she'll be the first to tell you that. I'm watching her roll her eyes like, actively.
What? It's like something in my eyeball. I changed it up.
As we continue on, feel free to send us your questions as we continue to explore some of the previous dives that you may have been on with Nautilus. As we continue through the search area, you may say, hey, you know, we've done other dives and expeditions and you were just right on the wreck. And that's true, but not in this case. We actually don't know the location of this one. Some of that information is sometimes kind of kept under wraps when it comes to where some of those big wreckages are, and this one is not previously known. Samoa Clipper has not been seen since 1938, so it's going to take us a little bit of time to hopefully discover it.
Lonnie, I think it's been a bit, but can you tell us some of the, remind us of some of the clues of why we think that, or why we're looking in this area?
Sure. After the Samoan Clipper disappeared, after its emergency landing, black smoke was seen. And this was reported back. People saw it from different parts northwest on the island and back in Pongo Pongo. And aboard the Avocet was a Grumman duck, and the commander of the Avocet, which was a seaplane tender, took off and flew out to investigate, and he said that he saw oil slick coming from the bottom. He went back and sent the Avocet out that evening to the area. They stayed in the area all night, and shortly after daybreak came upon debris floating in the water, including the jacket of Finley's jacket with Pan Am logo still on it, and a pair of trousers, Assistant Engineer Brooks' trousers with a bent tie clasp in it, pieces of the soundproofing light things that were floating, a strut that was 8 feet by 5 inches, but really not much more. So these things were put in a bag, taken back to Pongo Pongo, and eventually given to a ship to take back, and things were analyzed. In any case, Williamson flew out again the next morning when the Avocet was out there and confirmed that the oil slick was coming from the bottom and was in the same location. And based on that, the Bureau of Commerce accident report gives us some coordinates. It was very frustrating that the Avocet as a ship never gave us lats and longs in their log, but just recorded that they were continuously changing speed and course. So we do have a set of coordinates, and I was wondering myself, the lane that we're on now, how is that in relation to the coordinates, the original coordinates that we have?
Let's see, the lane we're on now is approximately, in our grid pattern, 880 meters south of that coordinate.
Okay.
Currently, Argus is about 1,200 meters southeast of it.
Okay.
That coordinate is the smack dab center of our search area, right?
Yes, it is indeed.
Okay, that's great.
Um,
We also had an eyewitness at the time who reported the smoke before to her chief before it was known that before it was reported that a plane was missing. But she saw it come in for an emergency landing with black smoke and fire and then an explosion after it landed. But she said she saw the wing floating for about 5 minutes, so we're hoping that's still intact. And this is a high wing. You know, people think of 2 wings on an airplane, but this wing was over the fuselage. And it was 118 feet, 2 inches long and 13 feet wide, so it's substantially long and strong, and the top would have been painted bright orange so that it could be seen in an emergency. So we're looking for, I don't know if we'd still see colors, but it would be bright orange on the top.
Where does the use of Avocet come from? Because I hear it in this context. It's the name of the French missile that was used with devastating effectiveness in the Falklands War. Is that some sort of seabird or something, an Avocet?
I don't know, but it was later used as a minesweeper. That's all I know of its history. I don't know the origin of the name.
Huh.
Sounds like a job for Google.
Yeah.
Is there any theories on how the clipper might have wound up on the seabed? Upside down, right side up, one piece, 2 pieces?
I have a correction on the measurement of the strut fairing. It's 5 inches by 8 inches.
Oh, so it was a small
So very small pieces.
piece.
I think everything that was
Yeah,
found
yep.
afterwards, it says the items and the bits of wreckage salvage were few in number, there being no structural or metal parts among them except for a piece of strut fairing like Lenny just mentioned. The Bureau of Air Commerce report says that it was significant that practically all of the items picked up, i.e. bits of flooring, partitioning, books and papers, the navigator's drift target tray, and interior sidewall parts were apparently from the interior of the cabin adjacent to the hull fuel tanks. It says a further important point is that the parts in which are known or believed to have been in the compartment to the rear of the hull fuel tanks were considerably burned, while those that were from compartments forward of the tanks show evidence of heat but not exposure to flame. And that drift target tray that we were mentioning probably in previous watches that looked like it had been wetted with gasoline and then burned, that was also from the rear of the compartment.
Sounds like a bad day.
Pretty bad day.
The struts were the largest duralumin sections ever extruded. And I'm interested, Dr. Megan, what is the difference between regular aluminum and duralumin?
It's the alloy composition. So from what I understand, and please, if anybody can correct me, please correct me, but from what I understand, these interwar aircraft, they were of a different alloy than when we started making, say, World War II aircraft. So this aircraft was anodized, as well as many World War II aircraft were as well, but they had a different alloy at that point. It was a 4000 series alloy, and I think duralumin is another series of alloy. And that just means that the aluminum is combined with other metals in order to make it both stronger, more malleable in this case, and also of less corrosion ability, so more corrosion resistant. And that was with the addition of copper. And that also might be a reason why we don't see very much growth on aircraft structures underneath the, submerged in water.
Well, good news back to our Avocet question. It is a genus of birds. And you can thank Heather for that contribution.
Go, Heather's taking your job, Peyton. Good morning, Heather.
$8 a.m. I think.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
Yep.
Heather, tell us some of the shapes that you see in the water column. Somebody's got to answer that question.
Although now we don't have many shapes.
Oh, that's true.
Right.
It looks like amber.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the blobbies can be insects that were trapped.
Amber was good at capturing insects, that's for sure.
Was.
Yeah.
When we were flying on the island hopper flight, I just had the Jurassic Park song in my head.
Well, it's resin, it's pitch, right? Amber is. It's always warm.
It'd be pretty ideal if the wreckage was on a stretch of seafloor like this.
Yeah.
Because you would be able to pick it up.
Would not have to tease it out of the side scan.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we already went through that middle search area.
Yep. Yes.
After the first pass, didn't we? Yep.
Yes, we did.
We're kind of going further and further out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're now on the south side, making passes towards the south. There was a holothurian. 31.
Do we have any instruments that tells us the speed of the current down where we are and the direction?
On the bottom?
Yes.
When we have the ROVs in the water, we can use a technique to determine the relative current on bottom. But right now we just know we have determination of what we think the surface current is, but not at the bottom. We could, can we Doppler it?
Is that dark shape in the
zoom?
water column?
That's
Yeah.
probably a holothurian at
Looks
the,
like
at the
holothurian
bottom.
on the bottom.
Okay. Thank you. It's hard to tell scale from this distance.
Then we get Hercules down there and have some scaling lasers on, be much easier.
Yeah. How far apart are the lasers?
Are you joking or are you serious? You're serious. 10 centimeters, about 4 inches or the width of your palm.
Thank you, Ed.
It's a
Sure.
question that's often asked.
Yeah, that's a kind of a running joke. So I didn't know if you were serious or not.
It was a genuine first time.
Yeah, yeah.
I have one viewer who says they thought that one of the previous sonar images was a mongoose chasing a snake.
Oh,
Nice.
I like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I saw that too.
You did?
Yeah.
Great minds think alike.
Some of these rock patterns that we go over, I swear that I've seen the exact same rock before, of course. But then some of them, given the sort of stretching that we're seeing and the wiggle that we're seeing.
The heave?
Yeah, they look like little castles, like underwater castles.
Yeah, they look more unique.
Like fortresses or something.
Than they are, yeah.
When they're just all kind of across one of the screens, it kind of looks like lasagna to me.
Oh.
Ramen and lasagna. I think those are the two food references so far.
1 hour elapsed.
See, now I'm looking at the sonar and it just looks like a very complicated grilled cheese sandwich.
Ah, there you go. I see that.
Grilled cheese sounds good.
I see corrugated tin roofing.
Oh.
That's a good one.
Where'd all our Rockies go?
Nice if a plane just showed up in it.
That would be perfect. And this is transect 7, correct?
Let me check.
We're on 8
8.
still, right? Yeah.
8.
Yep.
Lonnie, I know this is kind of a long shot, but do we know what the paint used on the wing? Because you said it was painted orange. Do you know if it would have lasted underwater?
I think that would be a question for Dr. Meg.
Sorry, I'm trying to talk to one of our scientists in the chat room and mistyping and everything, and I missed the question. What?
Would the orange paint have lasted?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Paint lasts, especially at aircraft at these depths, paint will last on them if there's, and like we were talking about earlier, if there's no other reason for it not to. So when we came across a B-29 that was about at 370 meters, there was a lot of current in that area and there was a lot of bacterial action going on, and it had actually, I think, that it had caused the sand to scour off the skin of the wings. So you saw the internal wing structure, but there was no skin left. And of course, if there's no skin, there's no paint. But since we were able to find flight control surface fabric on that wreck, yeah, there definitely would have been paint if we could have seen it.
And the planes aboard the aircraft carrier USS Lexington that was recently discovered by Paul Allen in the Coral Sea, the planes aboard that still had paint.
Absolutely.
Looked as though they had just been painted yesterday.
Do we know the rest of the color of the Samoan Clipper, or is it just orange?
That was the top of the wings. It had Pan Am Airways system across the fuselage, I believe. It had
I think it
a
was
Sikorsky.
silver. The base color was...
Oh, silver, but
yeah.
I mean what we're looking for colors.
Yep.
Other colors. Sikorsky logo on the tail sections, and of course the numbers of the plane. NC16734 would have been on the tips of the wings, over and well under, probably over as well. So there are quite a few markings that would be present.
So the only main part that was painted was the top of the wings. It wasn't, the rest of it
Painted
was
orange.
Yeah, the rest of it was kind of
Especially
that
in
silver color.
Did Pan Am still, I mean, did they even have a logo back then, and was it the globe?
I don't think it was the globe yet, but
it was the blue set of, it had the name and it had a stylized set of wings coming off one side, but that was blue.
And it was System, Pan American Airways System. They, for short, they called it the System.
Kind of looks like it's a hockey reference, but like a version of the Red Wings logo.
Yes.
Like a circle with the wing coming off.
Yep.
I never did hear the theory on how it would have settled on the seabed.
I don't think there is one.
There isn't one?
It
No, we don't
really
know.
depends on if, so I mean, if it's just the wing structure itself, then it has those 4 engines on it, and it would drag it down, hit the engines, quite possibly turn over, so it would be flat. But if it had the rest of the aircraft still attached to it, so the whatever remained of the cockpit, whatever remained of the tail, then there's really no telling how it's going to look as it falls down. But I would say, I mean, a flat wing is pretty bankable.
The engines would be heavy though, and the maybe
They each a half
material
ton.
that would have been lighter in the fuselage. So
Yeah.
it could be upside down on the.
Yeah, yeah, you find a lot of aircraft inverted.
We have 4 Pratt & Whitney Hornet engines, and the props were 3-bladed Hamilton Standard propellers. Would they still be attached?
Don't know.
You
What
don't
were
know?
the props made out of back then? Were they wooden props or
Aluminum.
They
No,
were
they
aluminum
definitely
props.
aluminum.
Yeah, not wooden.
Yeah, I thought they would have been wooden too, but they were aluminum.
And it had 2 side pontoons.
Yeah, on the wings.
on
With
the wing.
struts.
Yeah.
And an anchor forward and a winch.
An anchor. Just like a boat anchor, like a windlass.
To moor.
Exactly
to moor
like
in the
that,
harbor.
yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
Was it just stowed in the front? and
It
then
was.
came out?
Yes.
In the bow.
And 9 watertight compartment doors. I'm just trying to think of the things we might see.
I'll take any of that.
Cargo. 750 pounds of cargo.
Yeah, it doesn't say what the cargo was.
It's mail was some of the.
A
Oh,
lot of first day covers and
Yeah, I think rest
typewriter.
the typewriter, there's
Radio.
newsreels.
Really?
Yeah. I think it was a new type of typewriter, if I heard correctly.
Anything else, Lonnie? Lots of letters.
lots of letters. A hatch. Entry hatch.
So Peter Fix from Texas A&M's Conservation Research Lab is telling me on the science chat that the bottom paint on an S-38 which was another Sikorsky aircraft, was ferrous oxide, which is what made it red. On analysis, there was evidence that the aluminum became anodic to the oxide paint. This was in 1936, and he doesn't know whether or not it changed by 1938.
Huh.
The aircraft went down in 1938, but when it was made, I think it was delivered in 1936.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
Delivered by Sikorsky in November 36.
November 36. So still, yeah, it could have been a possibility.
So it might be red.
Could
underneath.
be.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell from the few images. Obviously, they're black and white.
Yeah.
And hard to tell if there's any kind of change in.
Yeah, look at the
shade.
model up in the lounge. It's a pretty good model of the plane.
That's so helpful to have.
And it's it was called Safety Orange, I think.
And so Megan, when it says that the aluminum was anodic to the oxide paint, that means that the paint would have corroded first, or the aluminum?
That's a very good question.
I'll dig around.
In the Bahamas, they bottom paint their boats, and they'll put Tabasco sauce in the bottom paint to keep
Ooh.
off the barnacles from growing.
That's
I've
very
learned.
interesting. So barnacles don't like hot sauce.
Apparently, that's a thing.
Don't.
Is that a theory or is that a proven?
No, it's the Bahamians do it to some of their boats. Unless I'm in on a big mad joke that
Just
I'm just telling the
They're just
world
telling
that this fact that yeah, because in the Caribbean it's like stagnant waters. You get a lot of growth on the docks, bottoms of boats. Because a lot of that
I just
lead
wouldn't-
paint's been outlawed now, like the bottom paint.
I just wouldn't know if that would persist, how long that would persist to that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Seem would be water soluble, but
I have not dug into the research.
no, now I need to know.
We could test it or
Sounds
on a
like an
ship.
experiment.
Yeah.
Waiting to happen.
Do a patch in one corner and see growth rates.
We go into the shipyard in Mexico. There's plenty of hot sauce.
There you go.
Lonnie, you mentioned being in touch with Pan Am about this search.
Pan Am Museum, I think.
Pan Am Museum. I was going to say, is that there's no semblance of that company existing, is there? Or is it just the museum?
Well, actually,
It's a museum foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to do a live connect with them, I believe, on Thursday. And I think they've sold out the Cradle of Aviation Theater in New York for this event on the IMAX screen. There's also Pan Am Foundation, and Ed Tripp, son of Juan Tripp, the founder of Pan Am, is calling in this morning, I believe.
Yep.
For a chat with Russ. And
That's at 6 a.m. local, or might be, yeah, 6 a.m.
yeah, local.
they are very much alive as a Pan Am family
Mm-hmm.
on the internet. Very supportive, and they take this particular disappearance very personally, because Ed Music was their chief pilot, loved by everybody. He said, "I'm going to live the longest because I'm the most conservative pilot." He was meticulous. He had an incredible safety record, and everyone trusted him, and he set up the navigation school for his transoceanic pilots because he said they needed the same kind of navigation skills as a Cunard captain. And so he hired Fred Noonan, who had been a Navy navigator with a sextant for this job. Often flew with Noonan. But all these families were known to, I mean, Pan Am was small, so everybody knew one another and had flown, you know, they'd all flown together.
Dr. Megan, you'd mentioned that we have a question coming in about this, about sedimentation, but that this wreck probably wouldn't have a whole lot on it.
No, we don't see, well, and we don't have very many examples, but we don't see a lot of sedimentation on the other extremely deep water aircraft wrecks that we do know of in this area. The Paul Allen ones, the Paul Allen recently located ones are a good example of it, but also just because of the age of the site, I mean, sedimentation does occur very rapidly in some places, but probably not here. And this aircraft has only been down here for around about 80 some odd 81 years. So it's not enough for it to make very much of a difference.
And the fact that we're seeing all these rocks on the bottom, if you had enough sedimentation to hide an aircraft, you wouldn't be seeing any rocks.
Right.
Now, if you're at the mouth of, you know, the Mississippi or the Columbia,
Yeah.
That'd be a whole nother story. The Fraser River freshet.
So just going to jump in, we did get an answer for whether the aluminum or iron would have been corroded first. And so thank you to Peter Fix. So the aluminum is an anode, which means that electrons are stolen from it by the iron. And so it's galvanic corrosion. So the aluminum would have been sacrificed first, and the iron would have been preserved. So it's pretty likely that if it was an iron oxide-based paint, we'll still be able to see it.
Nice.
Well, that also goes, so if you paint an a ferrous paint on the side of an aluminum skin structure, that means that the electrons that it's stealing are from the skin, and therefore when that breaks down, the paint's not there anymore.
Gotcha. So either there will be paint or the entire structure will just be gone?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Skin structure, not the structure underneath.
Right.
Right. That's basically what Peter's saying now.
Meters off.
Yes.
Still double digits.
Yeah.
A shell. Is that a shell?
What is that?
Fish.
Codfish.
Yeah. It's kind of
I
flat.
don't think so.
You don't think?
Right.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's the shape of one, but see any? Yeah.
You need to get you a new hand signal for Zoom.
Right, that's perfect.
Are you just holding out your hands in midair and like sweeping them apart in like
No.
the
No, she looks like
If
she's
you-
throwing a softball at the screen.
Yeah, like zoom. It just came naturally.
She's using her Jedi powers.
Yeah.
I just saw Star Wars for the first time, like on this last cruise.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
It
First
was
time.
phenomenal. I was like, I'll be underwhelmed. Like everyone talks it up. It was so good. Huge fan. Huge fan.
Which one?
The fourth, which is the first, I guess.
Yeah. Or the
Cool.
first,
You
which
hadn't
is
seen
the fourth.
any of them.
Wow.
No, Star
I
Wars,
don't know,
Star
I
Wars.
missed it or something. Yeah.
Just hadn't heard of it till now.
That was, yeah, no, that's a great, great movie.
Then, what, the 9th one comes out in December? It's 9, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Man.
But now have you also seen Spaceballs?
Yes, I actually had seen Spaceballs before.
Excellent.
So a few references were over my head.
Right.
And like, I still don't know if Luke, I don't know if he's his father, because that whole thing.
Oh,
Tell
because that
me.
was in Spaceballs, wasn't it?
No, but well, I saw this in No, I did watch the second one too. So I watched the first Star
Ah.
Wars, then the second one, which is pretty good too.
Oh, it looks
And
like
that's
we're
when
getting
he,
some debris.
spoiler alert, I am your father. But I'm like, maybe he's just saying that. It's not true.
He was just messing with them.
We saw that target in the mesotech as well.
I think we
Pretty
should
solo.
go for single digits for a while. We don't have a hevelator on here, do we?
The what?
Hevelator, a barfilator.
Yeah.
The fact that none of us know what
That
you're talking
cameras.
about is a good indication we don't
Yeah,
have
we don't
one.
have one.
Would be IMU or MRU with the offsets for the overboarding sheave dialed in, so you know how far it's going up and down.
No, I mean we have an MRU for the multi-beam, but
All
so
these
it wouldn't be. It would. It's not
Pies
related.
and Arduinos around here. There's
It's not related to
plugged
the
in.
shiv, but we do know roll, peeve, all that.
Is it the same one the ship uses?
It's specific for the multi-beam.
Oh. You could probably
Which
tap
is-
into that one.
It's very, yeah, you could relate the position of the shiv to that MRU. That's just an XYZ.
I could do that
Offset.
with my iPhone sitting on
Yeah.
the bench here.
Do
Assuming I had paid attention in math, which I did not.
that. Yeah, if you did that, then you could, yeah, have a readout of the shiv, what the shiv's feeling as far as heave goes. The MRU is in the sonar room.
Apparently we have
could do a
quite a
little
few
Script on the, if you can get the raw data for the.
quite a few Spaceballs
that'd be an
fans
easy
after
start.
that
Oh, yeah.
reference.
Excellent.
It's the power of the Schwartz.
So Lonnie, after the accident with the Samoan
That's a good idea.
Clipper,
Should do
they abandoned the route, correct? And then when are there new planes that they use afterwards, they reestablished it? Or
Well, they built the S-43s. I think there were 3 of those, and there are also other global routes that they established. I'm not sure if they ever reestablished the Auckland route. Did they?
They did.
Not right away.
So not right away. So at its time, the S-42 was the most advanced long-range aircraft that there was. And we were talking a bit earlier about how the British were blocking our routes into the Pacific from that way, or through Europe, until they got an actually comparable aircraft, which when they did, they opened up those routes again to us. And so they were running a step behind Sikorsky in the very early time period until the last S-42 was lost. The Martin M130s came after that, very soon after that, and then the Boeing B314s. And I think most of the Trans-Pacific routes were back open by 1939.
so only about a year.
Only about a year.
And the last flight was, I believe, 1945.
For the Clippers?
Yeah.
With the, oh.
Aviation buffs out there are welcome to correct us.
Please.
None
So-
commenting yet.
If you guys could travel back in time to any period, like Lonnie, when would you like to go and visit?
Pirates. I want to be a lot.
That's a great question.
I mean, it wasn't an awesome time for women, I guess, but just that era would be.
You would have been a
kinda
great
cool.
pirate.
I would have been one of the girls that dressed
Absolutely.
as a dude that like went
Yeah.
on the ships to fight. I
Uh,
think I'd hope that
There's
that's
a
what I would
great
do.
folk song about that. I'll have to find it for you. Jackaroo, I think.
With my family background, I think I'd be a Viking
Ah.
exploring.
Ooh.
There you go.
What about you, Dr. Megan?
Oh, I think actually 20s, 30s, Art Deco, Golden Age, just sort of the,
Yeah. Have you been to Prague?
no.
Highly recommend. Not bombed at all during World War II, except once by mistake by the Allies.
12
Because-
centuries, 12 centuries of architecture
Yep.
still standing.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And it's one of the few, if the only city in Westernish Europe that has every style of architecture, and you can tour the city with a guide, and it's just you see
very
everything.
interesting.
Everything.
Wow.
On the river, incredible spot.
So this is interesting. It looks like
Oh,
when we
almost
went
there, yeah.
our way up, we got a few targets when we were initially doing the north-south-ish lines, one of which will be dead center on the line we're currently on, so we may actually see it in the camera.
Oh, great.
So we could pull up the image of 1055-06, take a look at what that looks like, and then possibly visualize it. See the
That'd
kind
be
of
cool.
Awesome.
It was a rock.
Oops.
That would have just been, so that's just basically target 6, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so, because that was the very beginning, and we didn't start renumbering for the second dive, correct?
No.
Yeah, so we'll be able to see that.
So that's this one on screen.
Yeah. That's coming up on this watch.
All right.
Coming up next.
It'll be what?
Tune in approximately
Preview.
All right, so
40 minutes.
What
Oh
did
yeah,
I do?
it's smack dab on our line.
I think you just changed the zoom.
I did. How do I do it?
Yeah. Is that an artifact?
No, that's something. It's a bit stretched, probably. So it's not as linear.
It's round.
Could you explain why the lines get stretched?
That's because in the along track direction, it's because of the speed, the ping rate that we're going, and the speed of the quote unquote towfish. And then in the horizontal direction, those the heave is kind of warping a bit, so it'll make, if there was indeed something straight line in the along track direction, it would look wobbly because of the heave, but also a shorter, blip of a rock may be stretched along track as well. So that's why it's a bit difficult before post-processing to kind of, at least in our current methods, to get a sense of the shape and the shape of these objects.
So slight correction, Summer. The song Jackaroo is about a girl whose boyfriend ends up joining the Navy and going into battle, and she goes down and gets a men's suit made that fits her. She enlists at the vessel and goes off into combat, finds him, brings him back home to a doctor who heals him, and they live happily ever after.
Wow. Based
And
on a true
then-
story?
No, not at all. It's from a Grateful Dead album. And then the singer of the song uses this story to propose to the listener with the refrain, "This couple got married, why don't you and I?"
Wait, this is a Grateful Dead song?
Yeah. Grateful Dead did a lot of kind of Americana folk songs.
Huh.
Our
Have to
winds did
check it
pick
out.
up. We're at 22 knots.
Rundown.
It's a bit of a gust. You can tell. I think we've adjusted our heading to compensate for that.
When we get into town, you should stop at that Club 79. I think they have it there and can play it.
Okay.
Lonnie, we have a question from Holly in Nashville. We'd like you to kind of share your experiences doing the research and preparation for this expedition. I know you spent a lot of time in the archives, but you didn't have necessarily a very big window to get all this info.
Good morning, Holly, and thanks for the question. This all began with an email from President of Air Sea Heritage Foundation, Russ Matthews, who explained a little bit of what he knew about the Samoan Clipper and said that he would like to present a white paper at the end of the month, this being May 2014, to OET, a proposal for perhaps including this in one of their cruise itineraries. So in about paragraph 5, Russ indicated there was a slight bit of urgency to this request, and I was in Colorado at the time, nowhere near the National Archives, so I started calculating the number of days minus weekends and Memorial Day that I actually had to finish all this research, and it turned out I had about 9 days. So proceeded to the National Archives, which are about 40 minutes from my house, and went through the whole procedure of obtaining records and documents and ship logs and any film footage that I could find and photographs, and started to reconstruct the sequence of what people knew or what people had documented. The big missing piece was the actual accident report. And I went through about 5 agencies until I finally found that at the Smithsonian. But researching a project like this just requires some time and definitely patience, because you have to wait through pull times and often missing pages and documentation and lots of rules in the archives. So it's a solo endeavor, and it's very exciting when you come across something that is a piece of the puzzle. So that's the exciting part. You're trying to reconstruct the whole picture, and when you find another piece of the puzzle and plug it in, then the project starts to become alive and you become part of it. And then being the researcher, the starting end of the project turns from paper to people. So you're on your own with the paper, and then you start involving the people who were at Pan Am for this project. For instance, Pan Am, Sikorsky, Hamilton Standard, which is UTC now, United Technologies, archivists in the Sikorsky Museum, Pan Am Museum Foundation. So you start interacting with all the people who then become anxious to help you, and they also delve into the records and send you drawings and whatever they can find. So starting off the project.
Target on our right.
Yeah, it's a bit streaked.
Yeah.
See if there's any more to it. Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
No.
about it, Holly. Thanks for asking.
Have we seen stuff that's straight before?
Yeah, but always with a shadow. And then this one doesn't have a very big shadow.
And it's straight in our long track direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, if it was a diagonal line, I'd be a lot more excited.
Oh yeah, if we saw one of those, we'd be jumping up and down.
Everyone's prepared their happy
I will
dance
jump up
just
and
in
down
case.
if we see a diagonal one.
What's that?